I'm reading from Garner's book, Conversationally Speaking. This chapter 13 is called Organizing Your Efforts. Like most people, you probably have idealistic goals for the future. You may seek friendship, happiness, romance, a satisfying family life, or you may simply have yearnings you can't exactly put in words. How do you attain goals like these? Where, for instance, do you go to find happiness? Who do you speak to? What do you say to them? When your goals are vague, it's hard to know just what to do. And since you have no clear end in sight, you can't tell how you're coming along or correct yourself when you get off course. Lots of directions or no direction at all may look promising, and so you may keep second-guessing yourself and procrastinating. Perhaps most difficult of all, when you follow idealistic goals, you never get the sense of achievement that comes from completing a task. No one's ever totally happy or completely satisfied with every aspect of life, and conflicts soon crop up even in the best of situations. Wendell Johnson, writing in People in Quandaries, coined the term IFD disease to categorize the problem. I stands for idealization, F frustration, D demoralization. According to Johnson, when you seek idealistic goals without specifying their form, you'll necessarily suffer frustration after frustration until you're demoralized and give up. Here then is the cure for IFD disease, a workable plan for improving your social life. Set concrete goals. If you want to make progress in forming and carrying on relationships, you have to first decide how to realize your idealistic goals in real life. Concrete terms. Only when you know where you want to go, can you effectively channel your time and energy toward getting there. What exactly is a concrete goal? It is a statement describing a specific performance. A correctly written concrete goal has the following characteristics. It is specific. It describes a behavior which cannot be confused with other behaviors. For example, rather than saying you want to act more warmly toward a person, you might make your goal to give that person a surprise present. It's verifiable. If someone is observing your behavior, she'll be certain you've achieved your goal. For this reason, being close to your family isn't an adequate goal, while inviting your family to go on a picnic is. It is positive. It requires you to increase the frequency of a desired behavior rather than decrease the frequency of one that isn't desired. For instance, rather than saying, I want to stop avoiding Jesse, you might say, I want to invite Jesse to have lunch with me today. It is measurable. You can tally up how often you perform your target behavior over a given period of time. Instead of deciding, for example, that you want to get to know more people, you might decide you want to smile at 5 people you don't know each day and talk to each of them for at least 2 minutes. It depends solely on your actions. Since you can only control your own behavior, it's not really fair to base your success on or failure on the responses of others. So if your goal is to invite your neighbors to a barbecue and you do it, you've met your goal regardless of whether they say yes or no. A simple and helpful way of using concrete goal setting is to pick at least one goal to work on each week. I, for example, have a standing goal of playing with some neighborhood children once a week. Whereas before I'll often hold back, telling myself I have journals to catch up on, classes to prepare, calls to make. Now I consider my playtime a part of my regular schedule, a legitimate activity as important as any other. I enjoy myself immensely and the kids have a good time and everything manages to get done anyway. In planning your goal for the week, it's often a good idea to specify exactly when you're going to fulfill it and to show yourself you mean business by recording your goal next to that date on a calendar. For example, let's suppose you decide on Tuesday I'm going to invite George to go camping with me this weekend. With that as your goal, when you wake up Tuesday morning, you'll be oriented toward taking action and make it a point. You will make it a point to either see or phone George during the day. Before concluding your conversation, you'll be sure to issue your invitation. And even if you don't, you'll still be better off. You'll at least know you failed to make progress and then lay plans to do better on Wednesday. Build an assertiveness hierarchy. If you have several goals you wish to achieve and feel anxious about some or all of them, form an assertiveness hierarchy by ranking them in order of difficulty and proceeding from easiest to hardest as the weeks pass. Wait until the week before you plan to achieve a goal before deciding exactly when you'll act. You'll find moving up your list somewhat like climbing a ladder. Just as it's a lot easier to reach the 5th rung after you climb steps 1 through 4, so it becomes easier to reach your 5th goal after achieving 4 easier ones. Add more steps. If a goal you framed appears very difficult or arouses in you a good deal of anxiety, divide that goal into sub-goals. For instance, if inviting a coworker you personally don't know to dinner at your home seems hard, you could divide that goal into steps. On Mondays, I'll say hello to B, smile, and ask an open-ended question. On Tuesday, I'll talk with B during a coffee break. I'll have at least 3 open-ended questions ready, which B is likely to be interested in answering. If the coffee goes well, I'll invite B to lunch on Thursdays at Bersati's. On Thursday, at the conclusion of lunch, I'll invite B to have dinner at my house this Sunday at 8 p.m. Rehearse covertly. 2 additional techniques will help you lessen your anxiety about completing your goal for the week. The first, identifying and disputing any irrational belief you hold about working on your goal, has already been discussed. The second, covert rehearsal, is a way of trying out new behaviors mentally before performing them in real life. If possible, before beginning your covert rehearsal, observe someone carrying out a behavior similar to your goal. Models can give you a standard to pattern yourself after, or can stimulate you to think about how you might prefer to act differently. Then rehearse covertly by vividly imagining yourself carrying out your goal and receiving a favorable response. Be that person and see through the eyes of that person rather than simply observing the scene as you would on a TV show. Picture the colors, smell the odors, hear the sounds of your scene as clearly as you would in real life. See yourself acting and reacting appropriately and effectively as the other people in your scene respond exactly as you would like them to. You can covertly rehearse while you lie in bed, take a shower, sit at your desk. Where you do it doesn't matter. All that counts is that you do it consistently. There's no question of the value of covertly rehearsing, even for as little as 5 minutes a day. Behavioral psychologists routinely recommend it, and dozens of studies show it helps people become more relaxed and skillful in social situations. It has also incidentally been shown that mentally practicing fencing, skiing, tennis, wrestling, and basketball free throws improves performance significantly. Wow, mentally practicing. Reward yourself. Before you begin working on your new goal, decide upon a reward you'll give yourself when you succeed. This will make success all the more desirable and will ensure that each new behavior will be reinforced even if others don't at first notice or appreciate it. Your reward must be something that you genuinely want. Perhaps clothing, a book, a record, sports equipment, camping gear, rich food, a long walk, a scenic drive, a day in the country, a movie, an hour to work on a garden. After you reach your goal, reward yourself immediately and generously. If you're stingy or hold back altogether, you won't take your future promises very seriously. Whenever you give yourself a reward, go one step further and praise yourself for making your goal. This is vital if you are to become more self-confident and outgoing. One study found assertive people compliment themselves freely, while non-assertive people often put themselves down. The findings were conclusive and overwhelming. There was not one assertive person in their sample who typically criticized himself, and not one passive person who typically praised himself. The researchers observed that it seemed as though the self-reinforcement mechanisms of the non-assertive subjects had broken down, and since behavior is a function of its consequences, it's not hard to understand why people who are continually pushing and rarely praising themselves become passive. So when you achieve your goals, and whenever else you do something that you like, get in the habit of letting yourself know how pleased you are. You did it. Congratulations. I'm proud of you. I did great right there. And when you praise yourself, be careful not to sneak criticism into your praise. You did it, but you could have been a little less awkward. That was okay, but you'll never get anywhere at this rate. She said yes, but that was just out of charity. In fact, even when the other person doesn't respond as you would prefer, praise yourself for meeting your goal and for trying, and look for a better way to handle the situation in the future. Tell yourself, for example, nice going. I had good eye contact, my voice held steady, and I asked 2 open-ended questions. It's too bad she's going skiing this weekend, or I bet she would have said yes. I'll be sure to ask again next Tuesday. Or, you've really improved. You managed to keep that conversation going for almost 3 minutes. Maybe next time you can do better by planning in advance and asking him more about himself. Or, even though he said no, I'm glad I tried. Most people dwell on their failures, berating themselves over and over. All that typically does is cause them psychological pain, drain them of energy, and discourage them from trying again. If you want to become a more positive, assertive person, learn from your mistakes and leave them behind, but dwell on your success. Some real-life applications of concrete goal setting. Students of mine have used concrete goal setting to improve their lives in a wide variety of ways. Here are a few examples. When his father passed away, Ben decided to pay more attention to his mother. He found, however, that his good intentions were resulting in little more than occasional guilty phone calls. Frustrated, he concretized his goal as follows. Each week, I'll spend at least 2 hours with Mom. The first week, he rewarded himself by having his car washed and waxed after his visit to her house. Ben began inviting his mother to join his family in seeing plays and movies, in going to museums and art galleries, and in taking trips to the country. He was delighted that everyone was having so much fun and was moved by the way that they were becoming closer to one another. Ben decided his participation alone was enough of a reward. 2. Mary wanted to get to know the people at work, but that goal was getting her nowhere. She concretized it to read at least 3 times a week. I'll ask someone at work to have lunch or to spend a coffee break with me. While I'm with that person, I'll share something about myself and ask at least one open-ended question. For her reward, Mary decided to either have an especially nice lunch or to ride the bus home instead of walking. Before long, she knew everyone at work, and some of them were asking her to lunch. Carlos had been divorced 11 months and wanted to get back into circulation. He'd go to discotheques and spend a considerable amount of time looking at all the people milling about dancing. Looking would lead to drinking, and drinking would often lead to chatting with other fellows. Often when he'd see a woman he was attracted to, he'd watch her, waiting to be certain that she was alone. Whether she had been or not, before long she wouldn't be alone. When Carlos realized how obviously self-defeating his actions were, he disputed his catastrophizing about how horrible it would be to ask someone to dance who turned out not to be alone, and drew up what was for him a rather severe, concrete goal. Beginning as soon as I enter a discotheque, if I'm not talking with a woman, I'll ask one to dance at least every third song. He decided to reward himself this first time by getting his racket restrung the next day. Carlos narrates what happened next. I went to Flanagan's Lounge and walked around as usual. Then I realized the third song was starting, so I took someone's hand and danced with her and told myself how proud I was that I had got started right away to keep my goal. It was funny, but once I got my feet wet, it became easy to ask. The fourth girl I asked really seemed to like me, and we got to talking. 4. After having achieved 2 earlier goals on her hierarchy, Dina decided she didn't want to put off her 6th item any longer. She and her boyfriend hadn't held hands in 3 times they'd been out together, so she decided to be assertive. Dina added a time to her concrete goal and made it read, "This Friday night at the school play, I'm going to rub Walt's arm. If he doesn't take it away, I'll hold his hand." Next, she and her conversationally speaking group went over her irrational anxiety-producing fears and refuted them. Dina told me that, despite this, she sat next to Walt for a full 30 minutes pretending to watch the play while silently catastrophizing how awful rejection would be and insisting that Walt, being the man, really should be the assertive one. Finally, she said, "I got so fed up with the whole damn thing that I just did it." And Walt leaned over and kissed me right then and there. Set concrete goals for using your communication skills. Many people read this book, decide that they're going to work on the skills they've learned, and they don't do anything. Here are some simple ways you can use concrete goal setting to make sure that doesn't happen to you. Nonverbal skills. Increase your use of the softened behavior by concentrating the first day solely on smiling. Put a big S on your calendar for that day so you'll remember. Then make it a point to smile when you're happy and to smile when you see people whom you like or want to get to know better. You may want to be still more concrete and decide to smile at 1 or even 10 people during the day. The second day, put SO on your calendar. Concentrate on smiling and maintaining open posture. The third day, SOF, and so forth. Praise yourself each time you carry out this goal and give yourself a small reward every time you advance a letter. Verbal skills. Conversationally speaking has taught the skills of asking open-ended questions, delivering positives. Self-disclosing, active listening, and following up on free information. Pick one skill from this list that you would like to start using more often. If it's a new skill, have a goal of using it once the first day, twice the second day, and so on until you reach what you consider to be a satisfactory level. This will probably be around 6 times a day. If you've picked a skill you already know, count how often you use it each day for the next 2 days. The average of your totals is your goal for the third day. Increase your use of this skill by 1 time per day until you achieve a satisfactory level. If you feel anxious about using a skill, dispute the irrational beliefs behind that anxiety and devote part of your 5-minute-a-day covert rehearsal time to vividly picturing yourself using the skill and receiving a warm, positive response. Once you arrive at a satisfactory level of frequency with one skill, monitor it daily for a week while beginning the same process with another skill. Then monitor it every other day for a week, then every third day for a week, then once a week for as long as you think helpful. As you level off with some skills, you may wish to work with still on some others. Increasing your rates will mean going out of your way to be with people and use the skills taught in this book. Recording your rates will enable you to see exactly how you're doing. Setting goals can not only increase your use of communication skills, it can change your outlook on life. If, for instance, you decide on a goal of delivering 3 compliments a day, instead of looking for things to gripe about, you'll begin looking for behaviors, possessions, and appearances to praise. You'll become a compliment detective and will probably surprise yourself by how many positive features you'll find. The men and women you meet will find you positively pleasant to be around and will go out of their way to please you. This will give you still more to feel good about. So with a little effort, you can replace your vicious circles with enjoyable and nurturing ones.